Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Today we are speaking with Donna Stuart. Donna is a functional health and ancestral lifestyle coach, helping you come home to you, mind, body, and soul. Welcome to the show, Donna. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you, Jill. I'm happy to be here. It's exciting.
It is. So we were talking a little bit about the ancestral lifestyle before we started recording, and I really love for you to share what that means to you and how you got started with it. It's kind of a fascinating term, and I think I've ever heard anybody else doing that. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I guess I grew up in California, and I have very, very lucky to have a family lineage that was from farming and salt of the earth. And, you know, you go pick a weed or an herb and do something with it and make whatever is making you unhappy or ill go away. And, you know, so it's good home cooking and down to earth kind of attitudes. And I always have been really healthy. I've just been really lucky. And thinking about how fortunate I am to have a gene pool like that. Then I came on as, you know, I got into junior high. Then I had a struggle with my weight, you know, a woman, and I was athletic. And so you began worrying about your weight. And I got into the ancestral lifestyle, maybe 7, 8 years ago when it had a name. And before then, it was just eating healthy. The greatest gift I think I've ever been given is the struggle with my weight, because it meant everything I put in my mouth had to count. It had to either make me healthy or not have too many calories. And so I was eating clean because I couldn't afford the calories of a hamburger and a milkshake that all the rest of the girls in high school could, even though I was an athlete. And finally, I stumbled across the carnivore diet. And that was the first time. It was actually paleo and Clovis. You know, there's keto, paleo, Clovis. Those are all answering to how are we genetically put together to live in this world in communion and in concert with the planet and everything else. Now, that was my belief system that I was brought up with. And then I now hear food. And all of a sudden, I was given permission to get rid of my carbs because so many of the fad diets had carbs. And once that happened, all of a sudden the weight just started dropping off. I felt better. And I thought, it has a name. And now I can know what to do with that. So that's how I got into it, and then decided to go into health coaching. And my background is psychology and education, but went into the Chris Kresser ADAPT program. And their specialty was functional medicine, which was about how does your body function? And the target is not to fix a broken body, but the target is to make your body function at its finest. So it's more preventive and integrative on the whole lifestyle. And then ancestral lifestyle is how do you live your life? Try to remove contaminants and so on from your environment. And so that just all seemed like what I'd been doing. And at my age, I'm healthy and I'm not having the problems that my peers have. So far, it seems so good to me.
You were just mentioning that you got COVID on your way back from
Yeah.
Hawaii and that it only took you like 3 days of
Yep.
really bad stuff. In 2 weeks, you were totally over it. And
Right.
that's really remarkable. Most people that I talk to, it takes them, they're down for a couple weeks and then it
And
takes them a month to overcome it.
And that's the first time I've been sick in years. I'm the only one in the family that hasn't had COVID. Whenever the family gets sick, which isn't very often either, but when they do, they call Grams to come take care of everybody while they're sick. And, well, thank you. I was happy that it worked that way too.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of it is just knowing, paying attention. You were talking about paying attention to what you're eating and what we put in. It does affect us more than just on the physical level. It's more than just gaining weight or losing weight, because
Right.
weight is actually a symptom of a larger problem. It is not the problem itself. And
Exactly.
most people are just like, I just want to lose weight, but there's all these other things you need to look at first. Like,
well, we're broken down into 4 bodies. There's the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body. And we live in those 4 bodies and 4 worlds. And trickle down effect, if something's not right somewhere, you level up one, and that's usually where the problem needs to be addressed. That's why I like functional medicine so much.
right, because it's like we're in shells, not just one thing. And conventional medicine likes to look not only at just like the one physical body that we have, but then they chop it up into like organs, and no organ connects to another one, or you have to see somebody else.
Exactly. And they wait until it's broken. And then when it's not working well, they either want to cover it up with a medication or cut it out so it doesn't work anymore. And functional medicine says no, like my numbers, I don't want to be compared to a 78-year-old person. And I want them to compare my numbers to like a 60-year-old or a 55-year-old. And that's my target. So,
And those numbers that they have are averages, and they're averages among sick people. Primarily. And most people don't really recognize that when they go into the doctor's office. They're not feeling well. They draw blood and they say, oh, your numbers are right in the normal range. But nobody steps one step further and says, okay, so what does a normal range represent? And the answer to that question is it's an average of all the people who come in here and get their blood drawn.
right. And I learned a really interesting piece of information from one of my functional medicine docs. And he was saying that it's not the same throughout the United States, that cholesterol, bandwidths are different depending on what state you're in as well.
And blood pressure, and they don't do the tests properly. And I mean, the blood pressure test especially, and they're really free to hand out blood pressure medications, which cause all kinds of side effects that most people don't take into consideration. And your blood pressure is, if you're a self-regulating being, your body makes your blood pressure what it feels it needs to be in order for it to distribute the blood around your body so it can oxygenate things. When you artificially start manipulating it to get into some number range, rather than changing your diet and environment to figure out, what's causing it to be like this, you're just asking for problems. So many people on blood pressure medication actually die earlier than they need to because of the blood pressure medication.
You're right. There's so much around it. I have an interesting story. I have a client exactly as you describe. And she did not want to take blood pressure medication. And
Mm.
she had anxiety about even putting the cuff on. And so we worked through anxiety, calming, and so on. And the doctor had said that, give me your blood pressure, make a chart daily. And I mean, she was really stressed about it. And I asked her, I said, well, how many times do you take your blood pressure? And she said, well, once. And I said, take it until it's the numbers that you want, and then give your doctor those numbers. And she was like, I can do that. It's like, yeah, why not? And she was able in a day to take her blood pressure sequentially, and she got it down to 130/80 or 120/80.
You can manipulate that with breathing. My
Exactly.
husband has been told he has high blood pressure for years. He was a truck driver, and they want you to be within this certain range.
Mm-hmm.
And he's cleaned up his diet, and he's done a lot of research on how to take your blood pressure accurately. But I know every time he goes into the doctor's office and sits down and they're talking to him and he's sitting up and he's anxious anyway because his blood pressure reading is always really ridiculous. It's like in the 160s to 170s. Sometimes it's as high as 180 over, something. And when he does it at home, sitting in his chair, breathing properly, and he does an average of 3 blood pressures and nobody's talking to him,
Right.
it's in the 120s.
Exactly.
It's just like, so,
Well, like you said, there are so many things you can do: breathing, being calm. My daughter had high blood pressure. My other daughter found some really awesome electrolytes, and the daughter that had the high blood pressure, just to appease her sister, started drinking the electrolytes, the minerals in there. She changed nothing else, didn't change her diet. She had a pretty good diet to begin with, though. And her blood pressure dropped immediately down to normal levels. When she's drinking the electrolytes, that's what the body needs. And, everybody is a little different. So you've got to experiment and find out, what's your answer.
Magnesium is another one of those things that most of us don't get enough of in our diet. And you just take some supplements, the right kind of magnesium. It's not real cheap, but that it makes huge difference because all of the electrical signals in our bodies based on magnesium.
Right. Well, water is an incredible conductor of electricity, and we are basically an electric being, and the communication throughout and within the cells is magnetic as well. So you've got potassium and magnesium, and then the calcium and the sodium, and so many new research studies that are coming out, getting presented. How would you say that? I discovered that research is often curated not by common sense or by what we think of science, which is in search of the truth. It's who sponsored the research, who paid for it, and then there's a curation, is this right? Is that right? So it's already pre-screened for us. And now with all the access we have to information, we're finding out a lot of new interesting stuff.
Yes, we are.
Which is exciting.
It is exciting, but it makes it people personally responsible for getting the information because it is available. And, coaches are really on the cutting edge of helping people to be aware of the discoveries that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's anecdotal, things that come up because, your clients do stuff like, you're just talking about your daughter and the electrolytes. Somebody listening to this might like trigger something in them that says, hey, maybe I should look at electrolytes. Maybe that would bring my blood pressure down. Maybe it won't, maybe it will. But,
Yeah.
it's kind of a big deal if they
Well, the
hadn't known
freedom,
about that before.
yeah, it's kind of like the freedom of that one client that took away her anxiety by knowing she could take the blood pressure several times and then pick the one she liked.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's what coaches are about, depending on who they're trained and how well they're trained. We're trained, the ADAPT program was motivational interviewing, which is all client-centered. And the coach is there as like a funnel to information and resources. And it's the idea to help the client get out of a stuck perspective and go, I can take that, take it 3 or 4 times. Why not? I didn't think about that, and what are you interested in? And then steer them. We'll try, here's a place you can look, here's a place you can look, here's an article, and here's another article. You decide for yourself. How does that fit with your vision of who you want to be and why? Why do you want to be the person you want to be?
And a lot of coaching is around deciding where you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to feel.
Right.
And starting there rather than what's wrong, and let's focus on the broken stuff, which is just going to make more broken stuff appear in your life anyway.
Well, what's really interesting is that research has found, you have the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and then the higher self. And so talking in the world of what you and I are most of the time, spiritual self is another whole discussion. But the conscious mind and the unconscious mind is, the unconscious mind is like a 5-year-old, and its task is to keep us healthy and functioning and working. And so it works on, keeps our heart beating, it keeps us breathing, it makes our eyes blink and yawn. And so it responds, and we don't have to consciously worry about it. The unconscious mind does not process the word not. So when we say, I don't want to be fat, the unconscious mind says, oh, want to be fat. Okay. And it's, how many times have I heard, we're going on a diet, and then your actions contradict what you told your unconscious mind. So actions speak louder than words. So the idea is, working with the mind, and that's where part of my coaching is neuro-linguistic programming. It's also ancient Hawaiian belief systems around how did they were healthy until the white people showed up. And so it's about how do your languaging, so you focus on what do you want to be, and then you can focus on and prioritize, what do I need to do today, and why am I doing it? I'm doing it because it's a move toward.
Yes, much easier to move towards something, to embrace something, to aspire to something, than to say, I'm not ever going to. That's just a recipe for disaster.
We all know that one, don't we? We all know that one. And as you move forward and you move toward that goal, you get to experiment. There's, my clients always talk about, well, what's this week's experiment? It's not what's your goal, because goals are often, you miss the goal. And often you learn the most valuable lesson by missing the goal.
And goals can shift. As you start getting closer to it, you may realize that, oh, it's really over here, not straight in front of me. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this thing.
Well, it's like I always talk about, the map. You map out where you want to go, and then along the way, you've got the map, so you're never lost. But you go, oh, that looks like a side excursion that might kind of be fun for today or this afternoon. But you can always get back on track as long as you know that map, and that's the kind of a security thing. That when you feel lost,
and just freedom and grace in that.
Yeah,
having a roadmap to where you want to go, to reach your vision, to reach the being that you aspire to embody. But having the grace for yourself to be able to explore other options, like, the gal and the 3 blood pressure readings, or the
Yeah.
6 or 12, whatever
Yeah,
she wants
right.
to do. There's freedom in knowing that you can, it's not an only this
Right.
path.
Right.
You can enjoy things, like if you're deciding that you're going to eat a certain way,
Right.
which is rather than going on a diet, that
Right.
you have some parameters that you'd like to stay within. You're embracing a style of eating,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean that everything that's not in that style of eating you can never have.
Right.
You can choose to do something
Mm-hmm.
that's outside of that. You can give yourself room to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of evidence that if you enjoy what you're eating, it's not as likely to be turned into fat immediately
Mm-hmm.
as if you're eating it and you're thinking, oh God, I shouldn't be eating this. I shouldn't be eating this. That will immediately turn to fat on your thighs.
Yeah. I think I can identify with that. Well, what it makes me think of is this time of year, we've made a lot of promises to ourselves, and by this time, we're maybe not following all of them. So every plan, you have the vision of what's the end product that you're hoping for. And I always encourage all of my clients, I'm going to, there's a workshop on doing your goals and setting your course for the year. And it's still early enough in the year to do that. And it's like, don't forget to build in grace and resiliency. If I go off the path, then how do I get back on the path? What are my strengths that I can rely on? What's in my environment that I can rely on to help me? So you build that resiliency. And I always call them recovery strategies. That I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've had so many opportunities to develop good recovery strategies, which
Yeah.
frees up your life, kind of. It's like, well, if this falls apart, I know I can recover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old plot twist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what puts the spice in life, right?
Yeah. And it builds momentum for you, and it also builds confidence,
Mhm.
knowing that you got this. And if you don't, well,
Right.
you could find your way back. You're not
Exactly.
lost
Yeah, with
forever.
that little list of strengths that you have posted as post-it notes on the inside of your medicine cabinet or on your mirror or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's another place where coaching can be helpful, no matter what kind of coaching you're getting, is that the coach can reflect back when you're in the middle of your stuff. You can't always see it. The coach goes, but remember when you did, or how in the past have you conquered this? And you go, oh yeah, you don't, when you're middle of the stuff, you're not always looking for, I could do this. At least I'm not.
Yeah. I don't think very many people are able to do that. And that's why coaches are so powerful.
Yeah.
What kind of people do you help? I mean, what
Wow.
kinds of things would people be struggling with that they would say, hey, I'm going to give Donna a call?
I get a broad spectrum of clients, and it's usually something that's more surface. I need to lose 5 pounds. My doctor told me I need to follow this protocol and I don't want to do it. I have trouble focusing. I have trouble staying motivated on my diet and those kinds of things. And when you get down into what it's really all about, it has to do with belief systems they have about themselves. And it has to do with oftentimes the failure to recognize that you have all the power in the world to create and determine your own life. And you just need a few hints and somebody as a guide on the side to ask the right question at the right time. Like my client, just say, well, how many times do you think you'd need to take your blood pressure? to get the one you want. I don't know, I've never done it. Okay, well, you want to try that this week? Is that your experiment? What are you going to look for? And so it's just someone to kind of maybe pull back the curtain and see something that they aren't seeing in themselves. I've gotten career coaching. I've gotten anxiety, blood pressure, medical issues. And then one was similar to that, but we ended up to the work setting. How do I get along in my work setting? How do I get along with my colleagues? How do I get myself out of bed and go to work and feel confident there? And I've had several people graduate from coaching. You know, it's like, wow, I feel so good. I just want to go out and test drive this new attitude that I have. I'm still curious about this particular thing we talked about, and I'm coming back, but I want to test drive just to be sure that I believe I can do it, and I want to know I can on my own. So
Awesome.
that is mixed emotions when you have a client that graduates. It's like I never could imagine that I'm the person that I am.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. So,
yeah.
so you do all one-on-one coaching. Is that what I'm hearing?
The coaching is one-on-one. I certainly have run groups. I do a lot of teaching, and that tends to be more maybe more in the Hawaiian belief system side of it.
Is
And
this the Anamano?
ho'o mana loa.
That's what.
Ho'o is to make, mana is energy and power, and loa forever. And you put that all together, ho'o mana loa is empowerment that goes for you forever. So it's self-empowerment that's the name of the halau, ho'o mana loa. And again, it's realizing what a beautiful, perfect being you are, and then practicing different skills on how to become that being and know that you are that being. So the Hawaiian practices are practice of ho'oponopono. A lot of people have heard of that, the practice of forgiveness, which frees you more than anyone else. And then there's like releasing negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, limiting beliefs. That goes more into the Hawaiian practices and neuro-linguistic programming and the belief systems about you are the creator of your universe.
We are absolutely the creators of our own universe.
In so many ways, the decisions we make, but by the perceptions that we create, that your perception, my perception of this interview is very different.
Mhm.
And because we're pulling in different senses, you're worrying about a bigger picture because you're producing this. And I have no idea of all of what's going on that side of, the screen. And I'm just worrying about, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to, do I look okay?
You look gorgeous.
Anything between my teeth, I mean, you got to be realistic and, just that kind of thing. Hopefully the cat doesn't start meowing in the background, so my world, we have 2 billion bits of information that are impacting us every second. And it's how warm is the room? Can I see? Is something in focus? That how I feel sitting in the chair, what I view in my peripheral, what's going on to 2 billion bits of information, and our conscious mind can only handle 126 bits, 126, 27, 28, depends on who you read. But that's a microcosm to everything that comes in. And so we develop patterns to filter out and filter in what's important. And there's, like you've heard, negative bias, and there's, all kinds of ways we filter it, that we look for something. And so through how we filter the input and ignore the other stuff is how we create our perception of what's the experience is. And then, you've heard perception is projection. Well, that's projecting your baggage onto somebody else. Perception is interpretation, how you interpret it. So That's how we create our environment, along with our choices.
And we can change it. It's
Oh,
as
yeah.
simple as telling yourself a different story about what happened.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if it's quote unquote true or not, because the only truth that you can honestly know is your own experience, what you're telling yourself about the event.
Right.
And no two people, as you just said, experience anything exactly the same.
Mhm.
And if truth is a quantifiable, measurable, repeatable, evidence-based fact,
Mhm.
then there is no truth when it comes to creating a reality or changing a reality
I think it
or
was
changing your mind.
Ken Wilber that wrote the book, There's No Such Thing as Free Will. It kind
Hmm.
of taps on to that idea. And the thing is that phobia to me is the best example of that. I have a phobia of, let's assume I have a phobia of bees. You don't have a phobia of bees. I do. We go to lunch and this beautiful little bee to you comes flying around and lands on a flower that's sitting right behind you, and we're outside in this cafe. I jump up in panic at that bee, dump over the table, the water goes everywhere, my heart is beating, and you're going, oh, such a cute little bee. And
Hi, Mabel.
yeah.
I
And
call all bees Mabel.
Mabel, yeah. And so two reactions, our blood pressures are different, our physiological reaction, our physiology changes. And I am harmed by just seeing that little bee because I panic, because that's how I interpret the threat. And that's what stress is. It's just sustained stress is over time is what's negative. Stress is good for you. If you don't stress your muscles, they don't grow. If you don't make a mistake once in a while and stress your coping skills, you don't develop resiliency. And and we're put together enough that we make enough stress for ourselves. We don't need to go out and do it.
Right. And we don't have to sit in it.
And so by changing that perception, that filter, that way you choose to experience it, like you said, you create your own reality, you create your experience.
Exactly. And people can find out more about this on a personal level by reaching out to you and having a call where
Sure.
you will help them kind of tell us what you do with the call. Put words in your mouth.
Tell you, is that what you said? Tell us
Yeah,
what you
tell
do with
us
a
what you
call?
do with the call.
Well, all of my clients will say the first thing she says is, well, what's on the front burner this week? Or how you doing? Or what? The idea of a call is, okay, you've had a couple weeks or you've had a week, and tell me about you. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Where are we? What's most important on your mind today? And then the rest of the call is about whatever that is. And it's going over, well, have you dealt with this in the past? And what are your strengths that you can bring to this? And what would you like? Let's go back and talk about that vision we created the first time. Let's talk about values. What's important to you? And then how does this apply to that? And what do you want instead, based on your values and your long-term goals and your short-term goals? And then usually we'll also talk about strengths. Remember 3 weeks ago when you told me, well, what about this strength that you have? Will you have this kind of support? So we go through those. And then why is this important to you? And what do you want instead? So we work through that. Lots of interesting things come up as they talk about it. They go, wow, I never realized I have secondary gain from anxiety because it motivates me. And I go researching and I read and I learn so much. It's like, well, could you get that secondary gain without the stress, of the anxiety? And then, well, what experiment do you want to do this week? What would you like to focus on? And so we talk about, well, what do you want to find out? Can I get my blood pressure down? Well, then how do you want to do that? So we lay out some steps, and it's an experiment with the goal in mind. And then we will usually ask something like, well, what shifted for you today? And they'll go, wow, I never realized that. And then there'll be something that they'll come up with that, boy, that's something new about me, that I really can do this, or whatever. Then we, bring it to a close. Any questions? And that's kind of how a coaching call goes. And then the next week, it's like, I never ask about, well, did you get your goal? Well, how'd the experiment go? Sometimes I do, because I'm just so curious. I'm really curious. Can I ask? But it's like, if they come in and they've been working on one thing, they could come in a week and go, oh, my week was a train wreck last week. My sister came into town, and this and all this I didn't. And so the conversation is nothing about what we've talked about in 3 months. So I'm not the gatekeeper of what the topics are. It's about, what's on your mind today? How can I help you?
That's great. And
Yeah.
it helps people to kind of get an idea of what coaching would look like. And you do offer a free introductory call.
Right. I call it a discovery call.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can go to the website and you can sign up for a discovery call. They're free. They usually last maybe anywhere from a half hour to an hour. They tend to be more closer to an hour. And the idea of a discovery call is to get a sense of, are we going to be a good fit? Is my strategy, is my sense of humor or lack of it, if you think I'm not funny, do our styles match? And that'll be important. And we'll talk about what's your vision. You'll get a little experience of how that goes, how to create a vision, and what are the things that you value in life that you hold near and dear that contribute to that vision of who you want to be in the future and be doing in the future, so that you are having in the future what it is. So you create that image of be, do, have, because we run through those cycles. And then every 3 to 6 months, we go back and revisit. And like, the client that kind of graduated said, I've reached my vision of who I thought I wanted to be, and I am that person, and I can't believe it. And I know I can be more. And so, it's time to revisit those things. I had another client that set a goal to earn a certain amount of money, and I get this little text, we need to go back. I need to set that goal higher.
Those kinds of calls make you feel so good, don't they?
They do. They're so much fun. And she will text me occasionally and say, still, I'm changing the words, because she's very graphic. She's a fun gal. And it says, this blank, blank, blank still works. This stuff still works. And it'd just be like every 8, maybe a year, it'll be, hi, Donna, things are going great. This stuff still works. Use whatever you want for stuff, but meaning the techniques and strategies that she's learned and the habits and practice that she developed are still working for her.
That is awesome.
And so, so that's a discovery call. And then you can decide for yourself, is that for me? You might have a protocol from a doctor that says you've got to start this diet and lose this much weight. And we talk about that and begin, picking that apart. And then it may evolve into something different when you realize, oh, wait, I can do so much more than just this.
Yeah. So people can get a hold of you on your website, which is
DonnaStuart.com, spelled with a Scottish spelling, Stuart. And then eventually they'll be connected to their other Facebook. Once you get to that, it'll give you other links to Facebook pages. And so I'm on Instagram, Donna Stuart Coaching, I think. I need to double check that. But it's Donna Stuart something or Donna Stuart Coaching would be Instagram. But if you go to the website, www.donnastuart.com, the other links will be there. You'll find those.
Perfect. And we'll make sure we put those in the show notes.
Okay.
So what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with today, Donna?
I guess would be the thing that I have on all of my stationery is to every day live positively and purposefully. And that could be emphasized differently. Live positively and purposefully. Everything you have at your disposal, but live positively and purposefully.
I love that. We'll leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for asking me on. I just so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.